Not a single person, I don't care what anyone says, not a single person blows up overnight. Be willing to play for nothing, to not have records that do well for years. Be willing to grind.
Start your own label, start your own club nights, build that scene. If you haven't got that scene around you, like build that scene.
You have to. It goes back to relationships.
I always say this whole business is just relationships, isn't it?
It's not even like me to get anything out of something.
No.
It's more so like, let's just go for a coffee.
Will Clarke built an impressive career in techno by going the extra mile. A respected artist and prolific podcaster, he brings his unfiltered take on the industry to the Dojo podcast.
I'm now seeing new artists pop up left, right and centre that I've never heard of, that have like 200,000 followers on Instagram, and I think it's great. It also goes to show for like new producers and new DJs that like the opportunity is all there.
And could you give yourself some advice, your younger self some advice? What would that be? Okay guys, welcome to the next episode of the Dojo podcast. As a guest, I have DJ Will Clarke. Will, thank you very much for being a guest on the Dojo podcast.
Thanks for having me, man. Really appreciate it.
You are pretty much the OG of podcasts. So, you know that you are the one that started this whole thing in our space, and we are following in your footsteps. So yeah, super happy to have you.
It's actually really interesting because I've done a few in-person podcasts. It's always online. I was just explaining to you the software we use. But there's something about doing it in person which I've always wanted to do. Yeah. But like, it's similar to you, like all of the guests are all over the world. So it's in our, especially in our industry, like everyone's everywhere. It's
difficult.
It's really hard.
It's difficult
and costly. These cost money, if you know what I mean. No, thank you so much for coming on.
I mean, like this is something that we've sort of wanted to do from the beginning, is meet people in person, you know. And I feel like it's pretty easy. It's just like you're having a normal conversation with a friend. Like, I do have questions to ask and stuff like that, and I have a rough guideline. But like, I found these podcasts, like I found it super easy. Just sitting down with somebody and just asking their perspective on things.
That's what it's about, and I think this is why I started mine. It's just purely this industry, especially music industry. Everyone's like passing ships in the night. Yeah. So, although we know a lot of people, right? When was the last time you sat down with a fellow artist, DJ, whatever, label head, whoever, and had an hour and a half in depth, no mobile phones, no distractions, like, and we very rarely get to do that in normal life. Let alone in our industry. And I think the reason why I started it was more so to allow people to have to hear those conversations, because I think it's like what you're doing with Dojo Music is like people really want to know how to do this. And it's that the information isn't actually that easy to find at all. Nowhere, because DJs were always, and producers and labels and all that. It was always like hush hush. It was always like, are you in the club? Are you like, how can you get in? And now with social media and all of that, it's way easier to get in. But even like when I started, you couldn't contact a DJ.
No, you couldn't.
I remember there's the classic DJ promo like email list that like everyone, like if you got that, like it was like, well, you're in. You've got everybody's exactly.
email.
But now it's like, it's just you could DM somebody and it's do it, or DJs are like Track Stack. I don't know if you know that.
Yeah, of course I do know it. Yeah,
like they're making it way easier to like give it to get
absolutely
get
and also like, you know, some of the bigger names out there who use it, like Jamie Jones. You have to really commend them for making themselves accessible to the average punter and actually listening to all of the tracks and stuff like that. But I want to dig into the whole podcast business in depth later on. First, I want to start with asking you, how do you get started in this whole thing? So what was your musical journey? Like, how did you go down the rabbit hole of becoming a full-time, artist?
So it started really young for me, like really young. I heard Faithless. Faithless. God is a DJ or Insomnia. And I was pretty much hooked. When I was 11, my dad took me to see Faithless. He pulled me out of school and took me to see Faithless.
He was a fan?
Yeah, well, he knew I was a fan.
Right.
And he loves live music.
Right. So any excuse to go to a gig, basically. Excuse.
And so he like made some excuse that I had to go to the dentist with the school, and then took me to see Faithless.
Pulled you out of school to go and see Faithless. I love it.
And it was in Newport Leisure Centre. So like, if anyone knows Newport's South Wales.
Right.
Not necessarily, no disrespect, but not the like most up and coming city or town in Wales. But it was this like leisure centre, probably like maybe 3,500 people.
Right.
And it was like the first time I experienced proper live electronic music. And I was pretty much hooked from there. Then, cut a long story short, I was around 12. We were in a music shop, me, my mum and my dad. And there was a poster for the DJ Academy.
Right.
And mum was like, why did you, like, you saved up your money. I was doing like discos by that time. I was young. I started doing discos when I was like 9.
Putting them on?
Yeah, like a local... School discos.
Right.
There was a local caravan site which one of my parents' friends used to run, and another one of their friends ran the like entertainment. So I went down there when I was 9 and just kind of learned how to not even mix, just push some buttons and putting
on some tunes,
play bingo and all of that shit, really. And then so I signed up to this DJ Academy, and in this DJ Academy it would tour around the UK, and it would for 10 weeks you'd go to the same place, and there'd be 20-30 of us. And there'd be beginners, intermediate and advanced mixing skills.
But what year was this?
I was 12, so 2002.
Right. Early 2000s.
Yeah. And then at the end of that 10-week course, when everyone had like learned, it wasn't just about mixing. It was about how do you promote yourself as an artist? How do you record mix demos? How do you make flyers?
Right.
How do you make yourself stand out from being just a DJ?
Because that's amazing. So pretty comprehensive little
it was
education.
Really good.
Yeah.
It was really, really good. And like one of the tutors was DJ Trickster, who held the Guinness Book of Records for like, I think it was 5-deck mixing. One of the other guys, I forgot his name, that's really bad. But one of the other guys that was a tutor, he was like a really accomplished like DMC scratch. So I got into scratching through
technical on a high level,
really high level. And the guy that owned it, a guy called, I think his name was Rich, he did this for years. It was a very lucrative business for him at the time, and he would tour around different cities in the world doing it, in the UK doing it. At the end of the 10 weeks, everyone together put a night on, and then from that, like a handful of us carried that night on.
Right.
In Bristol. I was 13, like I was young, and then there's a local...
So you lived in Bristol at the time there?
I lived near Bristol.
Right. So but Bristol was your main sort of
Bristol was the main city.
I mean, Bristol has such a rich musical history.
It's like almost richer than London.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like the amount of amazing artists that come such a small space. I mean, just from the top of my head, Ronnie Size, so many more.
Ronnie Size, Massive Attack,
Portishead, yeah.
On the DJ front as well, Eats Everything.
Yeah.
A lot of artists, I think Red Light lived there for a bit. I know Breach, Ben Westbeach lived there for a bit, I believe. Tell me if I'm wrong, Ben. And it's such a hub of music, or it was. And I would say...
Was there a feeling about that around town? So, like, was there a feeling of opportunity for a young and up-and-coming DJ in town? Like, was there, like, places where, because, like, hey, like, you know, I'm aspiring to play in this spot or in that spot?
There were so many clubs.
Right.
There were so many cool clubs. It was, like, the 200 to 400 cap clubs. There was quite a lot.
It's amazing to kind of growing up in such a rich scene and having that at your fingertips.
Even
you know?
like even the local town, which was a place called Weston-super-Mare, which was actually where I bought my records from. There was a record shop called Spin Central. There was a bunch of like smaller venues there. It was part of British culture in the 90s, early 2000s, that every town had multiple clubs.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, some were terrible and some were great, right? But Bristol had this hub of just like amazing clubs, and they were just like really underground. But underground culture was so different then.
It was like, I have the same experiences from uni, you know, because like around that time, sort of early 2000s, I was at uni in Bournemouth.
Yeah.
We had a club night called Maison, you know, Maison French for house, and that was on fortnightly. We would go religiously, and they would put on like sort of, you know, mostly UK DJs, but also DJs who are in the international circuit, but mostly UK DJs. You know, people like Darren Emerson and like...
He's Bristol.
You know, and like, we just absolutely loved it. And like, our whole life evolved around going to that club every 2 weeks. And I think it was good that it was only on every 2 weeks, because if it had been on every week, we wouldn't have gone to uni, wouldn't have done anything else, you know. But yeah, like the small clubs
but even Bournemouth isn't like, Bournemouth's a great city, but it's not a major city in the UK.
Absolutely not.
And that's what I'm saying is,
but
like,
we still had good people coming through all of the time, you know what I mean?
There was a real scene in the UK.
I remember Frankie Knuckles was in Bournemouth at some point, and I was like, why the hell was Frankie Knuckles in Bournemouth? I want to see him. I was just like, you know, like, and it's like, it was just random, but like people like that, you know.
And I think that's the thing, is the culture then, and I'm not saying it's better or worse now. I don't want to be one of those old guys to say, but it was better back in the day. But back in the day, there was a lot more opportunity for underground culture in house music. And electronic music overall.
It didn't just revolve around massive events.
No.
It didn't revolve around massive brands. I remember that we had this student club called the Old Fire Station. And that was owned by the student union. It was a nightclub that was owned by the student union.
There was one in Bristol as well.
And they programmed 7 days a week. Like, I mean, there's something on every night. And we had a UK garage night, which was one of my favorites. You know, I saw all of the UK garage heroes playing there, like Dream Team, all of those people played there. And then we had our house night, and like, you know, Digweed played at our house night, you know, and like, and you know, like nowadays, I mean, like if you wanted to see somebody of the caliber of Digweed, you would have to go to a festival, you know, not to your local student union joint.
No, totally. And I think that's the thing, is culture's changed, and not for the better or worse, it's just changed. And I think it's like, you go, I don't think people go out as much. I don't think people have.
I don't think they go out.
No,
I don't think going out is a weekend thing anymore. No. It's like, I'm saving up my money for event XYZ that's on in like 2 or 3 months. I know I'm gonna go with all of my mates. Like, we're gonna make it a big weekend. Like, and we're all going. And that's like the big one we're going to, and then I won't be out for like another month or a month and a half.
And it makes sense. Like, it's way healthier. Like, it's way healthier. Like, I remember, like, especially you'll know this from British university culture, right? It's like, you go out, get shit
annihilated
every night of the week.
Every night of the week.
And it's like, you didn't go to university to learn. You went to, I didn't go to university. I moved to Ibiza when I was 17.
Right.
And like, that was my university. But like, you went to university in the UK not to get a degree, to live the uni life.
It was, I feel, the way I saw going to university in the UK, because people go at a much younger age in the UK than they do in the rest of the world, right? So I feel it is your first sort of coming of age experience.
100%.
From the first time, I'm away from home. I'm not living at mum and dad's. Nobody's breathing down my neck when to come home. If I go out on a Tuesday night and I'm hungover in the morning, it's fine.
No one's gonna. I don't have to answer to anyone.
No, you won't have to answer to everybody, and it's your first sort of experience of adult life, you know. And literally, like, you know, you're like, at that age, your appetite for partying is just ferocious.
No, I totally agree. But so going back to where it started. So then did the DJ course, putting on nights in Bristol with friends. It was occasionally, we'd do like one every quarter or something like that. Where I used to buy records, a place called Spin Central in Weston-super-Mare, tiny little town, classic, like, very similar to Bournemouth. Classic seaside, British town, bit run down, not like need some help, if that makes sense. But there was a cool record shop called Spin Central, and the southwest of the UK is very much drum and bass. At that time, it's very much drum and bass, which it still is, and it was also very much hardcore and hardstyle.
Any jungling guy, I just remember that line.
Exactly.
Coming in the record shop. It's like I mentioned Spin Central. Mate, that's for anybody who's not old enough to remember, that's a line from Human Traffic, the ultimate UK clubbing movie.
Such a good movie.
An iconic film.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen it, watch it.
That's
Human
great.
Traffic. You mentioned earlier that you then moved to Ibiza when you're 17. So how did that come about?
Yeah, so carrying on from Spin Central,
right.
I would always buy records there, and they never really knew about house music.
Right.
Gareth, DJ Kickback, still around, still lovely guy. But one day I walked in and there was a woman in there, or a girl at the time, that was, Gareth was like, this is our house lady. She's running all the house. I'm like, cool. Who are you? She's like, I'm Sam. My DJ name is Miss Divine.
Oh.
And I was like, okay, cool. It's now Sam Divine.
Wow.
So I've known Sam since I was 13.
That's amazing.
And Sam asked me, she was throwing a party in Weston-super-Mare in this, like, I can't even remember the name of the venue. I was 15 at the time. And she was like, can you come and play? And I was like, yeah, sure. Let's spin a few records. I then got a text or a call from her like a couple weeks later going, I'm leaving England. I'm moving to Ibiza. I've got a residency in a place called Hush.
I remember that.
Yeah. She was like...
We went to visit her there and see her play. Yeah.
She was like, can you...
San Antonio.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Which Hush, like for anybody listening, San Antonio was like the British side of Ibiza. Everyone would go to San Antonio, and it was in the West End, but it was like the coolest... Hush was like the coolest bar.
Yeah.
And then all the workers would go because it was open till 6 o'clock in the morning. But Sam was like, do you want to play? And I just turned 16 and I was like, of course I want to play. Like,
amazing.
So I went out with my parents when I was 16, played at Hush.
What year was that?
2006.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah.
And then the following year, I was sold. I was like, I need to be in Ibiza. The following year, I'd just finished school pretty much, and I was just about to go from school to college. College in the UK is 16 to 18. It's like high school.
Yeah.
And I was like, I really want to try this Ibiza thing. So I saved up some cash and went for a month. And I was like, in this month, I'm going to just network as much as I possibly can. I'm going to play the places that I can play, and also just network as much as I can and see if I can make anything work for the year after. Fortunately, the year after, it was probably April time, I got a call from an old resident from Orange Corner. Orange Corner was like a beach bar in San Antonio. Next to it's Ibiza Rocks, but it was Bar M at the time. And he was like, I've got a music job in the UK, so I can't do the residency in Ibiza. Do you want to do it?
Jackpot.
I was like, sick. Yeah, of course I want to do it. So I rocked up. The day after my 18th birthday was my first day of a residency in Ibiza. And I did, cutting a long story short, I did 3 years in Ibiza.
Well, you know what? I think this is so important because I feel a lot of artists also getting robbed of these opportunities because we are losing all of the small clubs, right? To be a resident DJ for a couple of years, you know?
I was so lucky.
Because I was a resident DJ for years.
Where were you?
My first break was really in this nightclub in Germany, in Hamburg, called the China Lounge. I lived in the UK already at the time. After I finished university, I lived in London. But I won a DJ competition called IDJ Raw Talent. And off the back of that, I got a couple of gigs, and I had some connections back home. Got this sort of residency in this club called the China Club, and they started flying me out. Like I flew out for like a fee of like 300 quid.
So cool, yeah.
You know, like I'd get a Ryanair flight at 6 a.m. in the morning, you know, like literally for like, back then you could fly for like
nothing.
Yeah. Like 20 quid return. Like
it's still
on
pretty
Ryanair.
cheap now in the UK, but
you could go like literally 20 quid, 30 quid, 50 quid return to like to Germany. Take the 6 a.m. flight in the morning, the cheapest one. Like I would play on the Saturday night. The club would not provide a hotel or anything like that. I come out there like at like 4 or 5 a.m. in the morning. I'd kill some time, get back to the airport, fly home and sleep. Lugging a big, massive record bag around as well, like all vinyl basically. So it's
changed.
But that was like going to school, you know, like.
And I think that's where I learned to DJ.
Yeah,
being a resident, it was like it's the classic
playing
thing.
6, 7, 8 hours.
Yeah, I did 12 hours a day, 6 days a week for 4 months.
Yeah, that's going to school.
Yeah, and it was
you got to learn your craft.
It was playing trip hop, house, techno,
and that's the thing again, a variety of genres, because you're playing for a long time for a lot of different situations, probably like whatever, sunset, different tunes, you know, like picking it up a little bit but as you're going towards the night and people going to the clubs, you know. That
was it, is that back when I first started, and I'm sure you'll be able to relate to this, is club nights weren't about one genre.
No.
It was about multiple genres and multiple, like, how do you give everyone an experience? You used to go to clubs for hours. Like, you would go raving for hours. It wouldn't be like, oh, the headliner's on at 1 till 3.
That's what we're going for.
I'm going to turn up at 12:45 and that's what we're going for. It's like, no, I'm going from like 10 o'clock till 6 o'clock in the morning.
Literally, they let me into the club. I'm like, first one in, running onto the dance floor. You know?
And it, like in clubs used to have like second rooms that had like chill out areas. Or second rooms that was playing drum and bass or hard house. And it would be a community thing where everyone's coming from different walks of life, which I still think it is to a certain extent, but everyone's coming for different experiences. And I really want to get back to a situation where clubs have opportunities for people to be residents and also like show different styles of music on the nights and like have different rooms and kind of give people more of an experience rather than I'm just going for one person and one person only.
Yeah, absolutely. And like this is why I encourage like students on my platform also to just do their own thing. Start your own label, start your own club nights, build that scene. If you haven't got that scene around you, like build that scene.
You have to.
Because like especially if you're living in the smaller places, you know, it's like you've got to build that scene for yourself. But yeah, like, you know, like people, I don't want to be like the old guy that has so much nostalgia for the past and everything used to be better, because it's just, as you said, it's just different, you know. Like nowadays there's so many more opportunities in terms of this career that people didn't have back then, you know. Back then, it was a very small and elite group of artists that even got international exposure. You know, like Sasha and Digweed on a plane over to the States was a big thing. You know, if they played in America. You know,
100%.
And nowadays, you know, there's many people that can have global careers, and you can find your niche. I also know many smaller artists that are like still busy touring. But then also the competition is now relentless as well. So
what's your thoughts on competition though? Because I generally don't look at this as competition.
Okay, that's interesting. I'll give you my thoughts on it. I feel that there's a lot of pressure on artists to perform. Metrics need to be met, basically, right? People look at streams, people look at chart positions, and you know, these things always used to be important, and people who did well in the metrics always did better than the people that didn't, you know? But then also, I know that like maybe like 10, 15 years ago, if you released an EP on a regular basis on a decent label, that would be enough to keep you in the loop and keep you ticking along. And that doesn't doesn't seem to be that case anymore. Now it has to be, you have to be one of the top performers, you know. You have to hit certain metrics. And that's what I mean in sense of competition. It's not that we're pitted against each other, because I think as artists, we're all in it together. I feel seeing the other as competition and comparing yourself to where you stand within the pecking order is a very unhealthy thing for yourself and also for the industry in general. But the sort of realities of the marketplace, where it's about how many tickets you sell, basically, dictate that you have to hit certain metrics to be even considered to be a serious contender in the market.
Which 100% is the case, and I don't disagree with anything you said. Like I 100% agree. I think what's changed is the music business is way more of a business now.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So it's not about promoters building communities. It's about promoters booking DJs that sell tickets to make money out of, right? And I think if you can sell 100 tickets, you're worth that much money.
Yeah.
If you can sell 10,000 tickets, you're worth that much money. Yeah. And I think with smaller venues leaving the communities because of economy reasons, really, like, would you want to own a club or would you want to put a bunch of apartments on it and make a shit ton of money? Let's be real, right? I don't agree with it, but let's be real. That's what happens in every situation. I think the way to stay relevant is very hard nowadays. I think, and we were talking about this before, unless you have a global hit, to stay relevant for a long period of time is very hard.
I think so too.
Very, very hard. And I don't necessarily think that's an issue, because I think nowadays there's so many other ways to build business. You guys are a classic example for that. But I also think it's pretty depressing as an artist.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
because we've always needed big hits. Every I don't care what anyone says. Every big artist, every artist is a massive headliner that can sell massive amount of tickets. They've had some sort of big hit, right? Musical hit, viral social media hit.
Yeah.
Nowadays, it's the viral social media, that was never a thing. Yeah. But now it is, right? So you have multiple artists that have done that. Putting that pressure on artists now to have those hits and to have the
and not just once, again and again and again and again and again, almost like you have to line them up, you know?
100%. And I think, like, let's say, for instance, I don't know, let's use Fish for example, right? Like, Losing It was the hit. Yeah. Right? He had some big records before, and Losing It was big. And realistically, he could have probably not released anything for a very, very long time and still maintain that. But that was another level of hit, right? That changed his life. Yeah. But I can never be a Fisher, right? You can never be a Fisher. Like, that purely worked because Fish, the record's great, and Fisher is Fisher. Yeah. And he worked so hard over years and years and years, and at that point, the right timing, the right people were playing it. All came together.
Yeah, the stars aligned.
Nobody could plan that.
Yeah, I remember that moment. It was at Coachella. Yeah. He was playing the Dirty Bird stage at Coachella. He was playing Losing It. The crowd was just like, just this heaving mass of people just jumping up and down to it. He's doing his thing, like moving his hands as he does. And I was like, who the hell is this dude? Like, who is this dude? Like, I saw that video, you know? It was two things happened. It was a big hit. It was a viral moment as well, because that video went viral. But then also, what you also said, I feel that a lot of strategy and planning went behind that, because he was one of a couple of handful of artists who did things the other way around. He never was interested in conquering Europe. Yeah. He went to the US. He went with Dirty Bird. You know, Claude Von Stroke has given the platform to countless artists on that label, you know. Oh, are you on Dirty Bird as well? Yeah, I mean, like, he once said in an interview that it's like one of the best labels to release your first couple of Ibiza.
It was at the time, yeah.
Yeah. He gave that platform. He put him on a stage, and then everything came together. But I thought like going to the States was interesting because a lot of people like sort of dismiss the States as like a market that's just not so clued up, that's always trailing behind like, you know, Europe setting the trends. Yeah, like if you make it there, it's great because it's a massive market, but like it's not cool, you know?
Yeah.
And he kind of flipped that narrative upside down. Maybe it's still not considered to be the coolest market, but it's like a major sort of market that makes big artists.
It's my only market.
Yeah.
Like I play once or twice a year in the UK.
That's crazy.
Everything else is a couple times in Germany, maybe in France, maybe Switzerland, maybe like on a month's worth of gigs, that would be outside of the US. Every other month.
Well,
is the
you know
US.
what? You're very lucky in that respect because, I mean, maybe it's not luck, maybe it's strategy, but it's a very good market to have. I always, you know, every artist has their big in Japan, right? You know, like their one country where they're biggest. If the US is is like your number one, where you're like the biggest, then like jackpot, you know, like that's going to pay the rent. Till,
I always used to battle it. It always used to be something, I'm like, why can't I get booked in the UK? Why can't I do this? Like, realistically, I hadn't had a global hit.
Yeah.
That's the fact, right? And it's like, or I didn't come up through a crew or through a scene. I came up through Dirty Bird in 2014, which at that time was massive in America, or was growing in America. They decided not to build in Europe anymore. They decided not to do the Ibiza
I don't
residency.
think like, you know, obviously like you're hoping that you'd had more traction, like, you know, at home, and everybody would probably, that's a very natural thought to have. Everybody would want that basically. But then also like, you know, I think there's some great opportunities that came your way probably because doing it upside down, you know.
I was extremely fortunate, but that was purely built on just me writing so much music and not giving up until Claude actually listened to my music and then signed, and then it got to a point where I was the most released artist on Dirty Bird in 2015, 2016. And then when I decided to leave that camp and kind of build my own thing, that I had a foundation, and I was very fortunate. And I will never say anything bad about Dirty Bird because at that time, the music they were putting out, the parties they were throwing, it was, in my opinion, the best.
I love, although it's not my sound, I love that DIY spirit. I like Claude Van Stroke is really like it's been a big inspiration for me over the years because, you know, I've always followed his interviews and how his wife gave him an ultimatum. So it's like, hey, if you want to continue doing this, you better start putting some food on the table. You got 2 years, you know. And like he was like an older guy that like, you know, like still managed to build like this great career. And then, you know, they did their own events and stuff like that. I found it always very inspirational. That what he did, you know, and the platform that he gave other artists.
The thing is, it wasn't just Claude, and that's the thing. Is like Dirty Bird was a crew, it's a family, and like out of that family, the core crew, it was like Claude, Justin Martin, Christian Martin, J Flip, Ardy, Kill Frenzy. Then like there were some other artists that like Reva Starr used to do stuff on there, like Sebastian Leisure used to do stuff on there, and then I came in and was kind of part of the newer stuff with Walker and Royce and all of that. And the difference is, it was at the beginning, it was all about family. It was like if you were in town where one of the other guys lived and you were throwing a party, everyone came down.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It was truly that. It was so supportive. We all shared music with each other.
That's the power of community, though,
dude,
right?
We all wanted everyone to succeed. There was never like, why is he doing this? Oh, Shiba San as well, of course. Shiba San was there. Breach was there at the time, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like there was such a community between the artists there. there was no other label doing it. I don't care what anyone said. There was no other label doing it at that time that gave that much support to everyone. That died off towards the end. There was internal issues. There was things that happened.
Every brand has its
always,
time.
right?
There's always a cycle where things go up and then they decline again.
If I'm honest, I wouldn't be very. I know Barclay doesn't own Dirty Bird anymore at all. He sold it. Wouldn't surprise me soon if Dirty Bird comes back. The sound during that era was just iconic. Yeah. And Europe thought it was goofy and shitty.
Yeah.
And whatever. And that's why I never got booked in because for me to get rid of that Dirty Bird link took me years. And for me to go more into the techno world and more into where I'm at now, it took me years to get there. But it was like, this is what I want to do, and I've got my foundation. I'm very fortunate that I have my foundation, but I have to grow from that.
Almost rebranding yourself as an artist or changing a lane as an artist is probably one of the hardest things that anybody can ever pull off. So, I congratulate you for managing to do that, because it's almost you're starting from scratch, and it doesn't matter how many followers you have at that point, because they're into your old stuff, and you've got to fucking bring some people with you to the new stuff.
Totally.
But bringing people over to something new is just difficult.
It was really hard, and for me, but I was also very fortunate. I was very lucky, which seems to be the subject of this conversation is luck, right? It's like when I decided to go more on the techno route, Dents and Pico were like my favorite artists. They always have been. And Alex from Dents and Pico,
I love Alex.
Yeah, he's the best. He DM'd me and I didn't know him. Like, he DM'd me and was like, mate, I love your stuff. Like, can you do an EP?
Have you ever, sorry to interject here, but have you ever heard the saying, there is no such thing as luck, it's only opportunity meeting preparation?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's how I see it.
I agree.
Opportunity means preparation.
100%, man. Like 100%. If I look at like what I did then on like a networking, I was ridiculous. Like I was writing so much music and I was getting it to everybody, and I just had no care. I'd send
so Dents and Pico played a role in that as well.
Dents and Pico signed an EP to me.
Right.
At that same time was when Adam Bayer's and Bart Skill's Hey You came out. Adam was playing one of my records from Dirty Bird. It was like more of a techno remix I did of a drama. It was called Drama. Adam Bayer was playing that, and Adam hit me up and was like, do you want to do a remix of Hey? It was called Hey You, wasn't it?
I think so, yeah.
You're losing. Yeah. So
losing your mind. The one
Your Mind. Yeah, Your Mind. Yeah. Damn, fucking hell. Yeah. So at that time, Adam asked me to remix that, which was like, okay, well, Dents and Pico are playing my records. Adam's playing my records. Like, I didn't know any of these people. I knew them. I wanted to be in their camps. And then I remixed that for Adam, and then I did an EP on True Soul, which was more my vibe. True Soul.
But this is always how it happens, Will. And I think it's such a great lesson to learn for young artists out there. It's like, you make the music that you want to make, right? And that fits into like a certain camp or whatever.
Yeah.
If it's good, eventually those people will start playing those tunes and they will know your name, they will know who you are. It's like, oh my God, I've been playing like your tunes lots. Like, oh, that's who you are. And then like, that's when the ball starts rolling. That's when opportunities start arising. Yeah. It's like, first comes the music, right? Make the music, get the attention of those people that, make decisions about events. And Adam Bayer made a lot of decisions about who to put on, like, events every single year,
And I don't think I've ever played a drum code event. I've never played with Adam. I didn't really ever like bury myself in the drum code realm. Maybe I did once. Like, I think maybe once. But like, I was never that artist. I was never a drum code artist. I love and respect the brand, but it was never for me, if that makes sense. So I dipped in and out of that realm. And then that's when I decided I needed to start my own label.
Right.
I was writing records that fit in the techno realm, but also there wasn't any real labels that I could see releasing the records. And I was just like, what do I do with this music? Like, I love this music is my sound. This is where I'm at. How do I now I can get it to the DJs. DJs can play it, but how do I release it? Because it doesn't fit on this label. I can still do EPs on those labels to kind of keep in the community. But realistically, I want to release records that are purely Will Clarke.
Yeah.
And that's when I started All We Have Is Now.
I'm a very firm believer in that every DJ should start a label sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
I mean, for some, it's like, for some, when they're just at the beginning of the career, it can be a little bit too early, and it's great if you have a little bit of traction already. But for me, my label just made my career.
Yeah.
Like, I was sending out music to loads of labels, and I had friends in places that could have helped me, and they didn't sign my music. When I started self-releasing, that's when everything changed for me.
And I think that's the thing, isn't it? It's like you have to have a product out there, right? It's like you can be the best producer in the world, but until your music can be heard by other people, you're not the best producer because no one knows who you are, right? And I think it's like, especially nowadays, you can make a record. We could make a record in the next half an hour and we could put it out in a day, right? And then we could promo it to every DJ in the world and it could be a fucking global hit in a month's time. It's literally that simple.
Yeah.
And I know there's probably a lot of people listening going, no, you're having a life. It's literally that simple nowadays.
Yeah.
Whereas like before, it wasn't ever that simple.
No.
And I think, yes, like the likelihood of your record, you self-releasing a record, if you're a brand new artist, the likelihood of it doing really, really well is very slim. Like, let's be honest, it's very slim.
Yeah.
But if you can have one person listening, and the next day you have two people listening, and the next day you have 3 people listening to that record. Oh, you release another record. Oh, now 3 people listen to your record. Turns into 6. And so on and so on.
I've always been baffled about how music travels. When I started my label Incal, it was a vinyl-only label. Yeah. Small runs of records, like 300 copies, 400 copies, 500 copies. After the success of the first 4 or 5 EPs, I started touring a bit, and I started touring a bit internationally. And I'd go to South America, and like they will be playing my tunes, and I'd be like, oh my god, like. And they didn't have the records, obviously. They had the rips, right? That's what made me then realize that I've got to have a digital product, and also put my stuff on Spotify. But like, I only put my stuff on Spotify because I had the second or third release on my label, Inca, which is a vinyl release, and somebody goes like, Ben, have you seen this? And they sent me a link on YouTube. And it was, somebody put my track up on YouTube. It's one of those upload channels that just uploads loads of vinyl. And it had 1.6 million views.
Wow.
And I was just like, okay, that would have been 10 grand if that would have been on Spotify.
Yeah.
I then put all my music on Spotify. It was still a vinyl only label, but you could listen to it on Spotify.
Is that when Spotify actually paid?
Yeah, I mean, they still pay, but I think they've changed the.
You'd get $3,000 now.
Yeah, $3,000. It used to be 5 to 6 grand, and now it's 3 for $1 million. Right.
For $1 million, it's about $3,500.
Yeah. They've definitely changed it. To the detriment of the artist. It was crazy to see that very underground music still has like a niche. And like at some point I played like in South Africa, and these kids that were just house music fans asked me to play like in a township, and I played in a township, and people came up to me and go like, I've been listening to your Fuse mix, and I was like, this is crazy how underground music travels.
So cool,
like I'm somewhere in a township and somebody's listening to my mix, like on SoundCloud.
Yeah.
But I wanted to dig into a little bit more of America. This has been I didn't want to interrupt the flow of this conversation because we're going on interesting tangents. But I was really interested that you made the choice to sort of set up a home in Detroit.
Yeah.
How long did you live in Detroit, and what prompted that decision to go?
So I lived in America on and off for 10 years.
Right.
For the last 10 years.
Okay.
When I got my first tour in America. So my first, I did a tour when I was 20 in America, and where I just built that with my friends, and we just got in a car and toured around, did 5 shows. I wasn't even old enough to go to the clubs, but I had a fake ID. And then once I'd signed to Dirty Bird, Claude put me on a tour of his, which was I think I did 5 or 6 shows. And then I was fortunate enough on that tour to get an agent, which was, I had Claude's agent at the time. Then I got a bigger tour, and I was like, I'm going to America for 3 months. I need to live there because, as you're aware, when you first start touring, you make zero money.
Yeah.
You lose money, right?
Yeah.
So I need to work out how can I do this the most cost-effectively way to do it, where I don't have to stay in hotels the whole time, so I can be very efficient. I can still write music. I can still work out how to do this in a financial way where
have a base.
I don't screw myself. Yeah, and have routine. Routine for me is so key.
Yeah.
So I got a place in LA where I rented a room. At the time, I was fortunate enough to have a really small studio. I took over a vocal booth in a studio complex. And one of my mates, he let me borrow some of his old speakers. So I was still writing music when I was there. I was there for 4 or 5 months, went back to the UK. Then the year later, I had another bigger tour, which was a 4 or 5 month run. And I was like, well, I don't want to live in LA. Let me try New York. New York's my favorite city in the world. Let me try there. Rented a room for $1,200 a month, touring around, loved it, but was I need my own place. I need a place for a studio, because I didn't have a studio in New York. I could only write music on headphones, and that's not really me. So then I was like, okay, well, where do I have friends in this country? And then I was at Movement in Detroit. I was playing a Dirty Bird party there, and one of the promoters that was running the Dirty Bird party, a lady called Jen Lyons, she was a promoter in New York and also had just moved to Detroit and started investing in property in Detroit. She was like, why don't you come to Detroit? And I was like, you know what? I've got some friends here. It makes sense. It's in the middle of the country.
And it was cheap at the time, right?
Dude, it was so cheap, right? And it still is very affordable, right? So I rented an apartment off her, which was $400 a month, $500 a month. And I was like, it was
perfect.
It was perfect, but it wasn't, because it was she just bought it. I had the only apartment that was done up.
Right.
There was a crack dealer down the hall, and there was a pimp above me. So it was
all adds to the atmosphere.
It was ridiculous, and the walls were this thin. So you can imagine what the pimp upstairs sounded like. For fuck's sake. So I was like, okay, yeah, Detroit might be the one, but I need to get another place. So I moved downtown in a new apartment block. Downtown then still wasn't that built up. It was not dangerous, but it still wasn't built up.
Yeah,
it'd gone through the dangerous years of downtown, and then I only took that on short term. I took that on for 4 months, so I was in Detroit about 6 months in total, and my career in America just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And I was like, I went back in November to the UK, and was like, I need to buy a place, or I need a long-term, a full-time place. And I was like, being a DJ, in my opinion, renting a place makes no sense, in my opinion, because you're literally just putting money into something and you're barely there. So it's like, okay, what can I afford to buy as an investment that means that although I'm paying bills and paying mortgages and all of that, it's an investment for the long term, and I'm not just pissing money down the drain. So I was like, okay, well, let's buy in Detroit. So I got a place really cheap and lived there for 5 years.
Right.
And sold that in October 2023.
Okay. That's an amazing story. Yeah, I didn't know that you had such deep ties with America before. Like I've obviously like read up about you before this podcast and stuff, and I knew that you were in Detroit, but I didn't realize that America had played such a big part in your career. And I find it very interesting because that illustrates something that I think is very important, right? Which is like you've got to be willing in this career to go where the action is for you. You know, like you have to. If you want a career in music, like you have to make those sacrifices and go like, right, I'm moving where I can make some money, you know?
I think,
and for me, it was like being in London, you know, and then eventually like it was being in Berlin because I could afford a studio space there, you know?
And I think that's it is, as an artist, we're very fortunate that we can go anywhere, realistically, and we can try and make it anywhere.
Yeah.
And for me, like, if I decided to live in New York, I don't necessarily, like, with the amount it costs to live there, like, my life would have been very different. Yeah. Right? And
I think Detroit was a really good choice.
It was so perfect. Yeah. And, like, I love America. Like,
and not just because of the musical heritage, you know what I mean?
Man,
like,
that's the secondary thing is, like, it's also, it's a very small town. It's a very small community. Like, Detroit is a real people, man, and they support you from. If you move to that city, they support you, and I will always have like a love. Although I'm not there now, I wish I was, but although I'm not, like, Detroit is my second home.
Amazing.
But yeah, like the heritage, and I'm very fortunate enough now that, like, let's say for instance this weekend I'm playing with Kevin Saunderson in LA. Like, I've built up friendships with some of the OGs. You know what I mean? Like DJ Bone, who I play with quite a lot in Amsterdam for his Homeless Homies. Like, Detroit has linked me with a lot of people that are the reason why I do what I do. Yeah. And I'm lucky with that, man.
It must be incredible to be able to call on these people, to know these people, the people that basically invented this culture.
I know.
You know, it's a pretty special thing.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to relationships.
I always say this whole business is just relationships, isn't it?
It's not even like a relationships of like me to get anything out of somebody. No, I think it's more so like I'd rather just let's just go for a coffee. Yeah. Like, I don't care about the music side of it. Like, we can all make music, right? Let's build relationships. Yeah. And let's like have something that lasts longer than our DJ careers or
it's like so important. And I always just say, like, first of all, this industry is really small. So if you're a dick, if you're a diva, if you let your ego go out of control because you've, you know, made a couple of successful records and all of a sudden you think you're the shit, then people will start to find out, and it's going to be unpleasant after a while, you know? Yeah. But if you manage to stay humble, if you can build good relationships, those good relationships can carry you for many, many years and even decades, you know? Yeah.
No, I totally agree.
Yeah, it's super important, and it is really a village, the scene. You know,
it's getting bigger now because it's more people have the ability or have the opportunity to be in it now. So I don't know about you, but like I'm now seeing new artists pop up left, right, and center that I've never heard of that have like fucking 3, 4, 5 million monthly listeners and 200,000 followers on Instagram, and I think it's great now where the internet's taken it, and it also goes to show for like new producers and new DJs that like the opportunity is all there, and you don't have to rely on anyone else nowadays.
No, you don't. It's been a real shift, and I think sometimes like when we talk about how the music industry changed, there can be too much of an emphasis on all of the negatives that have happened.
Of course.
But then there's also a lot of positives, and you know, the fact that you can have artists independently putting out massive hits, and you don't need a big brand for that. You know, like your Anotas and your Kleine Musiks, you know. And people go like, oh, but you know, like Kleine Musiks are massive stars, and you know, like that doesn't apply to normal artists. But it's like, well, no, those guys have been grinding for years and years and years and years and years, and now they're making music that kind of hit a sort of a mainstream nerve. But it's all in their own labels, and the money that they own the IP, the money goes to them. You know, Anota, it's, you know, they have, you know, an album that streams hundreds of millions of streams on their own label. You don't need a big brand anymore to put those records out, you know? You don't need marketing budgets of a major label, you know? Back in the old days, those would have been snapped up by, you know, Virgin, they would have been snapped up by Sony, like they would have been snapped
with
up
really shit deals.
With shit deals.
And they probably would have been forgotten about, right? And I think that is it. We're very fortunate that the independent route, like as artists, we have more power than anybody else, and the labels are buying into us now. It's not necessarily us wanting the labels, because it's just a really shit bank loan. If you need money,
it is the worst bank loan in the world.
If you need money, go get a bank loan.
And I'm not talking about small labels.
No,
you know, like my label, whatever your label, because you don't pay out advances to artists, and like it doesn't work like that. You know, we just put out records and we split the money 50-50 with the artist, and that's that. Exactly. It's really that simple. You know, and you know what? Most artists don't even recoup. You know, on the smaller labels, but we're talking about the bigger labels out there, and like I don't want to shit on them either, because you know they provide different kind of opportunities and different expertises. But what I'm talking about is that like when you're saying like a really shitty bank loan, it's like getting your advance basically. You know, they're only giving you your own money. Like they're only giving you your own money pretty much that you're gonna make. You know,
and I think realistically now, like labels, let's say for instance like XL, Ninja Tune, they had communities around those record labels. But now the communities are based on the artists, right? Like I'd love to sign to XL, I'd love to sign to Ninja, like, but realistically my community of fans or whatever you want to call it, like they're not there for the other record labels, they're there for my music. And if as somebody new, as somebody in this industry, you just have to build that yourself. And work out the best way to communicate with them, and the best way to kind of feed that community, whether that's doing free parties, whether that's giving free music away to them, whether that's, I don't know, going for coffee with them, whatever that works for you guys. Every community is different, and you need to work out what your community wants and how to do that.
It's super interesting, because I keep saying this to students on my platform. It's like essentially the job we have as artists now is to build communities. You know, communities that sustain us. You know, and you know that can be a community that buys into the music that you make, but also community that comes to the party that you put on, or the community that you know loves your music curation. You know. And, you know, by putting ourselves out there, by curating music, by releasing music, by creating events, all we essentially are doing is like we're creating communities. And, you know, linking that back to what we said earlier about like clubbing life when we were cutting our teeth on the clubbing circuit, when we were younger, you know, like I remember those guys, they didn't do that full time, right? They had jobs and they put it on for the love. And if the party broke even, then that was a success.
It was a win.
You know, that was a win. And it was just all about being able to put on the next party, you know, and they did that for like 15 years, you know, and when they stopped, people were like, please don't stop. And it's like, you know, somebody else has got to take over the torch, you know.
And I think that is also where things can kind of, the lines can get blurred now. I think because DJs are so big, right? It's
a viable career, basically.
It is a career now, where it wasn't for us. It was a pipe dream.
It was a pipe dream, like an audacious dream that may or may not happen, but most likely wouldn't happen. You know,
I think some people can get jaded and potentially do it for the wrong reasons. And I think for me is like that is the one thing. It's like be willing to play for nothing. Be willing to not have records that do well for years. Be willing to grind. Like, Rome wasn't built in a day. You can't, not a single person, I don't care what anyone says, not a single person blows up overnight. Yeah. Like, I'll never forget when Funk Agenda and Mark Knight did Man with the Red Face, the remake of...
The remake of Laurent Garnier.
Laurent Garnier.
Yeah.
And then I think Funk Agenda got like best new producer. He'd been a producer and engineer for like 15 years beforehand. Yeah. Like, it's just that classic thing of like, you don't blow up. You only blow up overnight when you have a big record.
Yeah.
And that
takes 10 years to make an overnight success,
exactly.
as they say.
Yeah. And it's like, I had Clooney on the podcast, and he said exactly the same thing. It took him 10 years to blow up overnight.
Yeah, Simon Dunmore was saying the same thing in the last podcast that we put out, and he was saying, like, if it doesn't happen for you immediately, keep going. Talking about podcasts, you are a prolific podcaster yourself. Yeah. And I wanted to talk about that. Like, first of all, I want to pick your brain. It's like, how the hell did you get all of those amazing guests on?
Ask.
Like, was it just like, I mean, it's always the same. Like, same here. I ask as well. Yeah.
It was a hustle. The first.
But then, did you feel like a momentum building?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Where like, you got that one, and then after that, other people would like.
I think
respond.
It's exactly the same as releasing records.
Yeah.
Right. Like, you start releasing records, start recording podcasts. You pull in a few favors at the beginning.
Exactly, yeah.
The first 2 years were just pulling in favors and just asking people. And then for some reason, I don't know what it was in the industry, but like, people were like, oh shit, I can go on this podcast and reach 1,000 extra people or 10,000 extra people or whatever that is. And that might actually help this. And I think they realized the size of what podcasts can do for a brand, and we're like, then pretty much everyone just wants to come on.
Yeah, right? And no, like, there's not many people doing this kind of long form thing, you know?
No,
where like they're having interesting conversations.
Yeah, and I think we're becoming more and more open as human beings. Social media, everyone just sees the best parts of you. Podcasts is you actually see the human being.
Yeah.
And I think like, people that really care about the industry, care about the music, are interested in the artists they listen to or their peers in the industry, and they want to get to know them.
Yeah.
I was playing a show in Canada not so long ago in Nova Scotia, middle of nowhere, and one of the guys came in that was local resident there, and he was like, dude, I feel like I know you. I've listened to every podcast.
It's amazing.
And you're like, that's 260 hours you've listened to. And like, even if you'd listened to half of it, it's like you've listened.
How many episodes are you in now?
I think 260.
Wow.
Yeah, I kind of stopped counting.
Yeah.
It's April now. It's probably 5 years since I've done the podcast.
I mean, I've listened to at least 5 or 6 of yours, you know. Like, way before, like, I knew anything about your music. I knew about your podcasts, which is crazy, you know.
No,
because I was like, I kept, you know, it kept getting recommended to me, and like certain artists that you interviewed, I was very interested in. So I listened to them. I think the one, I listened to your podcast with Mochak, which I found super insightful. And he was just kind of, you know, talking about this thing that happened to him, you know, and the ball that he ran with, and he ran with it like probably nobody other and ran with it that way, you know.
Again, he didn't have a hit record, but he had a viral success. He had a hit. He had a hit post.
He had a hit post.
Or hit multiple posts. And it's like, he's out of that. He's built a fucking huge career. Yeah. Like a career that all of us could wish for, right? But only he could have done that.
Only he could have done that,
right? In the way he's done it. And the podcast for me, it's allowed me to have long form conversations with people that I've always wanted to have conversations with that we just don't get the chance to. Like, and there's good podcasts and there's bad podcasts. I have good episodes and bad episodes, just like I'm sure you do, right? It's like, sometimes I say yes to getting somebody on, and
just for the record, I feel this is going to be a great one.
Hopefully. Well, I think having two podcasters that understand podcasts, right?
It's going to be an easy one. Yeah. I mean, look, I'm completely new to this game. Like, I don't know how you see me, but like, I'm just having conversations and I'm just asking questions that I want to know the answers to.
Well, I think that's the thing, right? Podcasts, we're so used to interviews in this world, and interviews is very different to podcasts. I've had podcasts with people of mine where they think it's an interview,
right? Yeah,
and there's no conversation back. It's me asking them questions, and they're giving like yes and no answers,
right? Yeah,
like I had somebody on who's actually become a bit of a closer friend now. I won't say who it is, but like not even an artist, a promoter, and like every answer that he answered was just so dull.
Yeah.
And it took like, I was like, we were an hour in, and then he started a bit of conversating and like asking me questions and back and forth. And like, I'm like, dude, I wish you could have done this the whole
conversation.
Time.
Yeah.
There's a couple of artists that I've had on that just are dry. And just whether they aren't good conversators, whether it's ego, whether it's something else, just not good podcasts.
Yeah.
And that's fine.
Yeah.
So I released...
You win some, you lose some.
Yeah, I release records that don't do well.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just classic.
Exactly the same thing. Good analogy.
Yeah, and it is the same thing, and I do really enjoy it. Where the podcast is at now, 5 years, I'm at the point of how do I build it into a business? It takes a lot of time. I do everything online, and because of my touring and writing schedule, I'm... like this month, every Wednesday I'm recording like 4 a day. It's a lot. And then I edit everything myself. I do all the artworks myself. I do all the clips myself. And then my part of my team, Alicia, my assistant, she helps post all the content. But like, it's a lot of work. It's an awful amount of work. And to be consistent, since the day I started, I've released one every single week. I've not
one
missed
every single week.
Not missed one since.
Yeah.
So
that's a lot.
But that part of me, I'm a bit of a weirdo like that. I can't take. I have to be like, if I say I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it.
I love that perseverance.
Consistency is so
just
key.
Yeah, and just committing to something and seeing it through.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and I think for me, over the years, it's like taking different changes where like, it was only like, I think the third episode I started doing video. But like, I am now... as we all are, you are more so than me. I do all of mine on Riverside, but it's all video based now.
Yeah.
Like the Apple podcast and the Spotify podcast, personally to me, comes secondary.
Yeah.
Like YouTube is where I'm going to take this, and where I can see the brand growing.
Yeah.
And then hopefully that then buys off to Spotify and Apple. Podcast is a business now.
Yeah.
And I think breaking the podcast business is hard.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, what is the easiest platform for me to grow and see growth? And that's YouTube.
Yeah, I think like YouTube is for us the same.
Yeah.
Like we were always focused on YouTube first, and we wanted to people to just look over our shoulder and be in the podcast studio with us and be part of this conversation, and the visual aspect is an important part of that.
So important.
And then even if you go now, like all of the big podcasts that I follow, they're always filmed. Even although you might be in the gym listening to it, there's always you can always watch the conversation. And I think that's super important.
Yeah, and I think for me it's just fun having conversations. Like you and I probably, even we have very similar careers. We would have probably have never met.
No,
right?
If it wasn't for this.
Like if it wasn't for this, like the way you tour and the way I tour is very different, right? We tour in different,
and even just different genres of music. Like those worlds don't really overlap that much.
No, and I think that is the case of like this brings the community of artists closer, and just allows, we all share out the same hole.
One thing that I wanted to ask you, Will, is if you could do it all again, what advice would you give to your younger self? would you do anything differently, or would you pretty much just think like, no, nailed it?
If I could, yeah, there's loads of things I would do differently, but I wouldn't take back from what I've learned. I'm only doing stuff differently because I know more now.
And could you give yourself some advice? Would you, if you not even do anything differently, but if you could just give your younger self some advice, what would that be?
It will all be okay.
Yeah. It'll all be okay.
Yeah.
Just trust in the process.
Trust the process. And also, like, I've really come to this thing where we hear enjoy the journey over and over and over and over and over and over again. And I've actually worked out that none of us ever enjoy the journey. Like,
how come?
This is my thing.
Yeah, you got to elaborate on that.
This is my thing now, because when we're in it, we all want more.
Yeah.
To a certain extent.
Yeah.
Whether that's 1% more, 100% more, right? And I can only speak for myself, but...
Can I tell you a little anecdote about that? I think it was 2023. I must have played one of the biggest indoor shows I've ever played in my life. It was in Chile. And it was a massive indoor venue. It must have been about 8,000-9,000 people there.
Wow.
So like just a sea of people.
Yeah.
And I had hired a videographer for the occasion, and the guy was just not getting the right angles. I could see it while I was DJing, basically. You know, he was like, you know, filming like the dancers and the sky and the ceiling. It's just like not like doing it to the brief that I'd given him, basically. And I was really starting getting more and more agitated, and just annoyed with him trying to get his attention. And like, you know, like I had this pissed off face, and was DJ was like, come, dude, like here, over here, like, you know. And then I just kind of heard this inner voice, which was me, but like, you know, like a part of me that must have just watched myself and go like, and I said like, enjoy this moment, right? And I was just like, oh my God, like I'm playing this amazing show, like in the grand scheme of things, like if he messes up like the shots, like be a little bit annoying, but it's not the end of the world. And there's probably there's other people filming, 100%. You know, like it's a big event, you know, you can ask the promoter. And he'll probably get some right if he doesn't get everything right, you know. Just relax and enjoy the moment.
Totally.
But I was really just so wrapped up in that, like, oh, just like get this right, that like I'd almost forgotten that like this was one of the sort of pivotal moments of my career, you know. And, you know, like the last 45 minutes, I was just in the moment and enjoy it. And as you said, it's really, really hard to enjoy.
And also
moment,
I think,
you know?
I can guarantee you when you came off stage, there was a moment where you were like absolutely buzzing. Yeah. And then there was a moment of how can I do that every weekend?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's the thing, is like I think it's normal to want more. And I'm not saying that in a greed way or like just anything negative. I think it's just how humans are. I think if you could come off that gig and go, I'm done now. Yeah. Like I've gone my wildest dreams. All my wildest dreams have come true. But they don't, right? And I think every career peaks and troughs and peaks and troughs. Like not everyone, no one, not even Carl Cox probably has had the best day ever every day, right? Not every moment he's had is probably amazing. Like he's probably had times in his career where he's like, what the fuck is going on? And I think to understand that, and to understand for me, like if I could go back to like my 9-year-old of go like, dude, it will be okay. You'll work it out. Like we put so much pressure on ourselves. Yeah. And I put so much pressure on myself.
I think in our business it's especially tough because our perceived value is so measured all the time. How many tickets were sold? How many streams did you have? Which chart position did you reach? Yeah. It's all measured by all of these metrics that if you don't hit all of those metrics, basically, like your sense of self-worth can kind of suffer. Down. And like I went through a massive transformation in the last 3 years where I had to really work hard on not getting my sense of self-worth from external events, but from the inside. Yeah. It's incredibly freeing once you manage to do that, because you're not at the mercy of whether that was a good show or a bad show. And, you know, And before that, I was having this roller coaster of emotions, you know, like sometimes you'd have amazing shows and you'd be like on top of the world, and then you play like you get a shit show with like, you know, empty and, you know, people might have not responded to your music the way you felt, and you take it to heart and you're just like, this is my fault, you know. And to just kind of remove your sense of self-validation from external events was a huge one for me. And I feel that a lot of artists are drawn to this line of work in the first place because they need external validation. They rely on external validation, and it's just such a tricky one to figure out, because like, you know, sometimes I wonder with like some of the bigger names out there, it's just like you've achieved everything that you can possibly imagine. Like, why are you still on the road, you know?
Because they haven't.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Doesn't ever end.
Yeah.
And I think this is it's the journey we decide to take, that that feeling for achieving more, I don't think will ever end. So it's being comfortable with that feeling and accepting that right now is the best you've ever been. Yeah. And tomorrow, can you be 1% better or are you 1% less? But for me, it's like, okay, like, yeah, we all have a lot of shit going on in our lives, right? A lot of shit that nobody will ever know about publicly, right? And what's going on in business, what's going on in personal life. And we all have to work out what that is and how to deal with that. But I think the thing for me is like, what's the worst thing that can ever happen in this career? Okay, you don't get booked, right, to play shows ever again as that artist. Well, what can you do? If nobody likes your music, well, okay, and you're really bad and you can't get booked, well, yeah, maybe assess it. But there's artists out there that have really bad music that are really fucking successful.
That's it.
So like, there's a line for all of us, right?
There is,
And I think it's just accept that as long as if I can say I've worked as hard as I possibly could, and have I learnt from the lesson? Have I learnt lessons from the mistakes I've made? And can I grow from that? And can I not look back on things as negatively and look at the positives of those negative things? And if I can do that on a daily basis, whether it's micro or macro, I can be a better human being and a better artist tomorrow. And if I can do that day in, day out, then I'm winning. I'm never going to be Fisher because I'm not Fisher. I'm never going to be you because I'm not you. I can only be me. And if I can do that to the best of my ability, that's all I can do.
Well, I think that is a great one to finish on.
Thank you, man. Great conversation.
Yeah, amazing conversation. I've really loved it as well.
Same,
yeah. It's been very insightful. I've learned a lot, and those are my favorite kind of conversations. And I always forget to do this. If you haven't done it already, please subscribe to the Dojo channel. Every YouTuber always has to do that. I always forget to do this. Please subscribe to our channel. And if you want to educate yourself more about learning how to make music, how to run record labels, how to figure this whole thing out, you can check out dojomusic.net, which is our education platform. And thank you very much for coming on the podcast,
Thank
Will.
you for having me,
I really appreciate it.
Big love.